I want to talk to you today about something that happens to every single person that I know. Whether you're a business owner, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, doesn't really matter whether you're a salesperson, everybody has this happen to them where at some point you get stuck in a rut. And the challenge with being stuck in a rut is you typically don't see it happening. You sort of slide into it and it gets to this comfortable place where you're almost on cruise control, and you wake up one day and you realize you're in the rut. So it's not like a lot of other things where there's extreme highs and extreme lows, like a low valley or a high mountain or something like that. This is one of those things that it's just, you sort of kind of coast into it, which is probably the most dangerous part of being in a rut. You kind of coast into it, and then you wake up one day and you're like, I'm in a rut, I'm in a funk, we're in a slump, whatever it may be, and I don't know how we got here, I don't know when it started, and I don't know what to do about it. And so the thing that I think is most important is, number one, identifying that you're in a rut. You're in a slump. For whatever reason, things are not going up like you wanted them to. They're stuck, you know? And so once you identify that, to me, the number one thing that I suggest is getting out of the business. Like literally getting out of the business for an afternoon, a day or two, whatever it may be, because your body and your mind need what's called a pattern interrupt. You need to interrupt your daily thought process. You need to interrupt it both mentally and physically to actually get outside of your norms so that you can actually like shock your system into being like, okay, now I've got to think. Now I've got to think. And this is the first time I've had to think in a couple of weeks. I compare it to, like, let's say that you typically drive home the same way every single day. And it may not even be from work, maybe you work from home, but every time you go to the grocery store, you take the exact same road. You take the same road there, you take the same road back. At some point, you get blind to the road. That's why they say that most accidents happen within 2 or 3 miles from your house. You get blind to it. Have you ever gone through that situation where you get home, you park the car, you start taking the groceries out, and you're like, how did I get home? I don't remember the last 2, 3, 4, 5 miles of this drive. It happens to everybody because you get this blindness from being so comfortable in that rut. And the only way to break out of it is, boom, this pattern interrupt. This pattern interrupt comes in and shocks your system and says, wait a minute, I'm not in the office today. Okay, I've got to start thinking. And so your brain kicks into gear and starts thinking about things. If you're not monitoring your KPIs, if you're not monitoring a 90-day plan or an annual plan or anything like that, by doing that like every quarter, getting out of the business and doing it, then it's easy to just get in that rut, and then you wake up 6, 8, 9, 12, 15 months and go, I don't understand how we got here from where we started. Like, where's the last year gone? And it's because you haven't stopped in along the way to actually take a look at where you're at in the development of your business. So that's another thing I highly recommend, is those quarterly breaks where you get out for a day or two and you build that into your planning. And that's in addition to anytime you get in a rut, because it only takes a couple of bad days to next thing you know, you're in a rut. And so you don't want to wait till your 90-day planning session. You want to identify that you're in that rut and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to go work at the library today. I'm going to take a notebook and my laptop. I'm going to go sit at the library. I'm going to go sit at Starbucks. I'm going to go sit at whatever, McDonald's. It doesn't really matter. Somewhere with Wi-Fi. I'm going to go sit there, or somewhere without Wi-Fi, right? Where I can think. Like, I'm going to go to a park. I'm going to shut off my phone. I'm going to leave it in the car. And I'm just going to take my notebook and I'm going to focus. Or I'm going to go for a walk and put in some AirPods and listen to music, or whatever it is that you need to do to clear your mind and think and get out of the rut. For me, my go-to is always planning. I've got this little notebook that always sits on my desk. It's right next to my keyboard. And anytime I feel like I'm in a rut, I'll pick up that notebook, I'll go sit somewhere quiet, and I'll work on my goals and stuff like that. Hey, where are we on my goals? Where are we on this and that? What are the main projects that I have? What's causing me to feel this way? What's going on in the business? Whatever it may be. Because everybody falls into a rut. Everybody does. Doesn't matter who you are. Even if your rut is higher than the other person, so maybe revenue's growing, and then it kind of stops and you're getting a little rut. My rut may be higher than yours, but it's still a rut. And now I need to get out of that rut and keep going up the next direction. So again, for me, get out of the business, clear your head, get that pattern interrupt in there, something that physically and mentally wakes you up and makes you pay attention to what's going on. And if it's blasted music in your ears, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Whatever it takes to get you out of the business, get you focused on what's really going on, and gives you time to think about it. Because given a little bit of time to think about it, you'll usually come up with some really good solutions. Another thing is whether you have a coach or not, reach out to that person or a mentor, whoever it may be. Reach out to that person. Hey, I've been in a rut lately and I really need to talk to you about this. Maybe you used to work with a coach, but you haven't worked with them in a year or two. This is a great time to reach out and get what some of my clients call a tune-up. Hey, I need a tune-up. I need to chat with you for a couple of months and get back on track and back working in the right direction. And that may be all you need. Sometimes it needs to be that outside force working with you. You just have to stop what you're doing, acknowledge you're in the rut, and then focus on solutions to get out of it. Instead of what a lot of people do is they get comfortable in the rut. They get comfortable in it. They kind of, get all cozy and bring their blanket and some chips and just kind of love their rut. And then they start to fall into depressions and things like that. None of that stuff is healthy. Also, another thing that's not healthy is denying you're in the rut. So if you've lost 2 or 3 clients or contracts in a row, if you have been on a winning streak and all of a sudden you're losing RFPs and you can't figure out why, just say, oh, it'll be fine. The next one, we'll win the next one, win the next one. Before you know it, you've gone 3, 6, 9, 12 months, a year, and you haven't won the next one because you're in that rut. You got comfortable in the rut. So acknowledge you're in the rut. Maybe the next thing you need to do is acknowledge you want to get out of the rut, right? You got to acknowledge you want to get out. You start to plan to get out with the pattern interrupt and the planning cycle. And then all those things kind of combine. Those will help you get out of that rut. And again, like I said, if you ever need help getting out of the rut, I'm happy to stand on this side and throw you a rope in and pull you out. But you're going to have to do some work on your end as well. So if you have questions, as always, you know how to reach me. We'll see you next time.